These are the four guys, the four unrestricted free agents that I would definitely bring back if I was the Bucs. Number one, Lavonte David. Now, I know I was on the podcast yesterday saying that I think that he's done. But if he does want to come back for one more year, I would not be against it. He was the best player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their playoff game against the Washington Commanders. He still has gas left in that tank. Now, can he do it by himself? Can he be out on an island all the time against some of these top tier tight ends and other players out in space? I don't think so. But I still think he has a lot to contribute to a winning football team. He just needs help. He needs help in that linebacker core. I would certainly bring back Lavonte David. Number two, Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin coming off the injury. I know there's a lot of people out there that think that he's done, that since Jalen McMillan is here, you don't necessarily need to pay a guy like Chris Godwin, but I couldn't disagree with that more. You're talking about a guy whose dead cap hit is going to be over $18 million next year, regardless. So why not pay the guy? Why not pay the guy 20, 21 million? Mike is getting 20 and a half. I think there are going to be some teams out there that are going to be hesitant to pay Chris Godwin that money because this isn't the first season-ending injury that he's had. And you look at what's going on with him. You look at, he just had a baby, and congratulations to him and his wife. Why would you want to leave? Why would you want to leave this environment where you know that there's an offense with Liam Cohen that highlights what you do well? We didn't see that last year with Dave Canales, but we see it right now, or we saw it this year with Chris Godwin. Tampa loves you. You have a guy, a big brother in Mike Evans. You have the next generation in Jalen McMillan. Like, you could be the mentor to Jalen McMillan in a couple years when Mike eventually retires. I still think that the Buccaneers can pay Chris Godwin around $20 million to keep him here. Give him the same deal that you just gave him. 3 years, $20 million per. Find a way to kind of slice it up in a way that it makes it palatable for the salary cap. I don't think there's a reason why, and especially because that dead cap money is over $18 million, why Chris Godwin shouldn't be here next year. Number three, I'm going to go with Shaq Barrett. Now, I know this is more emotional than anything, but I look at what this team needs when it comes to the outside linebacker position, when it comes to the pass rush. There's no reason why, if Shaq is going to commit to being in the NFL next year, that shouldn't be here with the Buccaneers. Does it mean that you're relying on him as a starter? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Because I think you need to get guys that are younger and guys that can give you a lot more on the outside than what you got even before Shaq returned. You know, Yaya Diaby and Chris Braswell are going to be part of this team next season. I think Shaq Barrett would be a perfect complement to them, a perfect guy that can rotate in there during passing downs, and a guy that's just a good dude to have around. So keep an eye on Shaq Barrett. I would love to have him come back. I think if it's a affordable deal for the Buccaneers, I think it makes a lot of sense. And also, I'm going to stay on the outside. I'm going to go Anthony Nelson. Anthony Nelson is a perfect rotational pass rusher that is a solid veteran that is going to be available every single week. He comes up with big plays. You remember the play he made earlier this season in Carolina against the Panthers that ultimately saved the season for the Buccaneers. They probably don't make the playoffs without Nelly making that play. Another guy that is going to be there and part of the pass rush contingent for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm not saying splash cash at him and break the bank. And if other teams are going to do that, then, hey, you kind of wipe your hands and go, hey, good for you, Nelly. Go do your thing. But if you're telling me the pass rush starts next year with Yaya Diaby, Chris Braswell, and then Shaq Barrett and Anthony Nelson as some depth pieces, I think that's a good start. I think you should get another guy in the draft. I think you should possibly bring another guy in from free agency. And then you'll have 6 guys on the outside, because that is a huge point of contention when it comes to building this Buccaneers team. But those are really the only 4 guys that I would bring back when it comes to unrestricted free agents. You know, there's others when you look at a guy like maybe Ben Bredesen, who did a decent job at the guard spot. He was durable, but he did not grade out well by PFF standards. I went back and looked it up. You're talking about a guy that just, you know, can you get better in that spot? Are you going to use a draft pick there? Can you find another guy in free agency? Maybe. But when you go back and you think he was in I think the overall ranking was somewhere in the 90s out of 130 in the NFL. Granted, you didn't hear his name a ton, right? You didn't hear his name a ton. So that's usually a good thing for an offensive lineman. So if they bring him back, I wouldn't hate it. But I think you could possibly upgrade in that spot. You want to bring back some depth pieces on the offensive line, like a Justin School or a Robert Hainsey, go right ahead. No issues with that either. I think Sterling Shepard is gone. I think KJ Britt is likely out as well. And then these two guys that unfortunately were two of the worst draft picks in the Jason Light era, and that's Joe Tryon-Shoyinka and Kyle Trask. And it's kind of crazy to think about what their careers were like here in Tampa Bay. There were a ton of people that thought that Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was destined to be a 10-15 sack guy. He got opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. Everybody in the Tampa media was just blowing this guy up, thinking that he was going to be the man. And it just never worked out. He would over pursue. He wouldn't get to the quarterback. And then we saw at the end of last season, Todd Bowles was like, enough is enough. We got to get Yaya Diaby. And he was the guy starting over JTS. I wish him well. He's a great guy. Everybody says, man, he looks like a hell of an athlete. Well, I've been warning you about this for years. When the decision makers say a guy looks like a good athlete or he is a good athlete, you know what they're really saying? He's not a good player. And unfortunately for JTS, he's just not a great football player. Kyle Trask, you wonder how things could have worked out differently if, let's say, the Buccaneers went in a different direction and they didn't bring in Baker Mayfield and we got a chance to see Kyle Trask. We charted pretty much every throw and every interception during training camp before last year between Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield. And I don't know if we necessarily thought that it was a true competition. I guess we did. I guess we did get, fooled a little bit. I won't say fooled, but maybe misled a touch that it was an equal standing between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. Kyle didn't play all that bad in the preseason nor in training camp, but Baker's leadership capabilities and the way that he's just got that moxie and that unflappability to just really, if something goes wrong, to just snap and clear. He's a true leader of men, Baker Mayfield. Is Kyle Trask that guy? We don't know. We really didn't find out. I hope he gets an opportunity somewhere and maybe he becomes like a Sam Darnold type guy. But, man, Kyle Trask, it's kind of wild how things kind of worked out for him. So, yeah.